You bump into a table. You say sorry to the table. Someone steps on your foot. You apologize to them. Someone cancels plans on you, last minute, no explanation. And you say, "No worries at all. I'm sorry if I made it awkward." You apologize for existing in spaces you were invited into, for taking up time you were offered, for having needs you were asked about. And here is what nobody has ever said to you directly. This is not politeness. This is not good manners. A 2016 study from the University of Waterloo found that compulsive apologizing is not a social habit. It is a symptom of something that began long before you learned what the word sorry even meant. And it is costing you far more than you realize. Nobody is born apologizing. Somewhere, at some point, a child learned that their presence required justification, that their needs were an inconvenience, that when something went wrong, even something completely outside their control, the safest response was to make themselves smaller, to take the blame, to smooth it over, to say sorry before anyone had the chance to be angry. Psychologist Dr. Harriet Lerner, author of Why Won't You Apologize?, spent decades studying the psychology of apology and found something that reframes everything. There are two types of apologizers. The first apologizes because they genuinely did something wrong and feel authentic remorse. The second apologizes as a preemptive shield, a way of saying, "Please do not be angry at me. Please do not leave. Please do not make this into something I cannot survive." The second type of apologizer is not sorry. They are scared. And the thing they are scared of was taught to them by someone who should have made them feel safe. But here is the part that makes this genuinely disturbing. When you apologize for something that is not your fault, your brain does not register it as a social nicety. It registers it as a confession. Researchers at Harvard University studying the neuroscience of guilt found that every unnecessary apology reinforces a specific neural pathway, one that connects your sense of self with the belief that you are the problem. Every sorry that did not need to be said tells your nervous system, "I was wrong to be here. I was wrong to need this. I was wrong to feel that." Over time, the apology becomes automatic. You stop even registering that you are doing it. A 2019 study published in Frontiers in Psychology found that people who apologize excessively report significantly lower self-worth, higher anxiety, and greater difficulty setting boundaries in relationships. But here is what the same study found that nobody talks about. Excessive apologizers are also rated by others as less trustworthy. Not more, less. Because when someone apologizes for everything, their apologies mean nothing, and the people around them stop believing them, even when the apology is real. The very behavior designed to make you more acceptable is making you less believable. And it goes even deeper than that. Watch what happens in the relationships of someone who apologizes for everything. They attract a very specific type of person. Someone who is comfortable receiving apologies they did not earn. Someone who, consciously or not, has learned that this person will smooth over conflict before it even starts, will absorb blame that does not belong to them, will make themselves wrong so the other person can stay comfortable. Psychologists call this dynamic complementary codependency. where one person's compulsive self-erasure fits perfectly with another person's inability to take responsibility. The apologizer gives, the other person receives. The imbalance becomes normal. The relationship becomes a trap. Dr. Brené Brown, research professor at the University of Houston, found in her research that people who cannot set boundaries and people who over-apologize share the same core wound: the belief that their worth is conditional, that they are only acceptable when they are not causing difficulty, that love is something you earn by being small enough, quiet enough, sorry enough to deserve it. And here is the cruelest part. The more you apologize, the more invisible you become. And the more invisible you become, the more you apologize for taking up space. The cycle feeds itself. You might be living this without fully seeing it. These are the specific signs. You apologize before asking for something you are completely entitled to ask for. You feel a rush of anxiety when someone around you is upset, even if you had nothing to do with it. You find it almost impossible to say, "That was not my fault," even when it clearly was not. You over-explain yourself constantly, giving reasons for decisions nobody asked you to justify. When someone is cold or distant, your first instinct is to assume you did something wrong. You apologize for your emotions. "I'm sorry for crying. I'm sorry for being so sensitive. I'm sorry for bringing this up." And perhaps most telling, you feel guilty reading this right now. Because somewhere inside, you are already apologizing for recognizing yourself in it. If 3 or more of those landed somewhere specific in you, this is not about manners. This is about a story you have been telling yourself since you were small enough to believe it without question. Here is what does not help. Telling yourself to stop apologizing. It does not work. Because the apology is not the problem. It is the symptom. The problem is the belief underneath it, that your needs are too much, that your presence requires permission, that you are safest when you are smallest. What actually starts to shift things, according to research from the University of California, Berkeley, is something called intentional pause practice. Before the automatic sorry leaves your mouth, you pause. Just 1 second. And you ask yourself, did I actually do something wrong? If yes, apologize genuinely. If no, replace it. Not with silence, but with something true. Excuse me instead of sorry when you need to pass someone. Thank you for waiting instead of sorry I'm late. I'd like to share something instead of I'm sorry to bother you. The language is different. The energy is completely different. One says, I am wrong to be here. The other says, I am here. And that shift, small as it sounds, is the beginning of teaching your nervous system something it was never taught: that you do not need to earn the right to exist in rooms you already belong in. You learn to apologize because at some point, it kept you safe. It kept the peace. It kept someone from leaving. It kept the room from getting too uncomfortable to survive. That was not weakness. That was a child doing the only thing they knew how to do in a situation they should never have been in. But you are not that child anymore. And the people who deserve to be in your life, the ones who are actually worth keeping, do not need you to be sorry for existing. They do not need you smaller. They do not need you quieter. They do not need you to apologize your way into being allowed to stay. You were always allowed to stay. You just never had anyone tell you that at the right moment. Consider this that moment. Subscribe to Psychora, because understanding yourself is never something you need to apologize for.